Okay, we are officially back on the record. Again, I previously called the state of Georgia versus Demarcus Starks. I have the state who's ready to proceed, represented by Ms. Blunt, Attorney Blunt, and then I have the defendant who will be represented by Attorney Rhonda Hill. You ready to call your first witness, Ms. Attorney Blunt?
Yes, okay. State's going to call Officer Buchek.
And just for the record, and just real quickly, just for the record, we do have the defendant present at Clayton County Jail. You can proceed forward.
Thank you. Could you raise your right hand for me? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you'll give today be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Could you state your name for the record, please?
Officer Buchek with Clayton County Police.
How long have you been with Clayton County Police, Officer Buchek?
I'm coming up on a year.
And what is your job title?
Officer.
Okay.
Uniform officer.
Could you give us a brief description of what your duties include?
Enforcing laws, traffic laws, domestic laws.
Were you on duty on November the 3rd of 2022?
Yes.
And did you respond to 4182 Murray Lake Circle?
Yes.
Is that in Clayton County?
Yes, ma'am.
Why did you respond to this location?
We were called out for a person screaming.
And when you arrived at this location, what did you observe?
Upon arrival, there was you could tell the residents have been abandoned by the way that the lawn was cut, the way the house really wasn't too well lit. And upon walking up to the front door, I could notice that it had been forced in with forced entry.
Was there anyone inside of the residence?
Yes.
Who was inside the residence that you made contact with?
The defendant.
And how did you make contact with him?
He walked out from the rear of the residence out into the living room area that we could see through the window.
Do you see the defendant on this call?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Do you see the defendant on this call?
Yes.
Can you identify him by article of clothing?
Yes, he's a white t-shirt and an orange jumpsuit.
Let the record reflect that the witness has just identified the defendant. You made contact with the defendant in the back of the house?
Once he walked out into the living room, I gave commands for him to walk out to the rear door.
And what happened when you made contact with him?
Once we made contact with him, we detained him at that time just to search the residence.
And during the search of the residence, what did you find?
Once we walked in through the kitchen into the living room area, and we made a hard left turn that brought us into a hallway leading back to the rear bedrooms. There was a lot of blood on the wall, and there was a puddle of blood on the floor as well. And the interior had been pretty well damaged, with doors taken off their hinges and laying across the hallway.
At that time, was this defendant placed under arrest?
Yes, at that time he was still detained. Once we ran his name and date of birth, he came back wanted out of, I believe it was, I don't remember the county off the top of my hand.
And why did you place the defendant under arrest after you found out that he had warrants? But for this incident, why did you place the defendant under arrest?
At that time, it was criminal trespass.
And when you got this defendant to your police car, what happened?
Once we got him down to my patrol car, he ran from us.
Did you ever get him inside of the vehicle?
Yes, we did get him. Previous to him running, we did not get him inside the vehicle.
Okay. And were you able to ever catch up with the defendant?
Yes.
And what happened at that time?
At that time, he fell in the street. We brought him back to my patrol car, placed him in the patrol car. And it was at that time that he started ripping down wires to my in-car camera and trying to get out of cuffs in the rear of the patrol car.
At any time, did this defendant have any weapons?
In the residence, yes.
What kind of weapon did he have in the residence?
I believe it was a pistol.
And what was special about this pistol?
The pistol had been altered to have a switch in it. Modifying it from a semi-automatic to a fully automatic, you could switch in between.
Thank you. No further questions for Officer Buchek.
Okay, attorney, hear your witness.
Officer Butcher, you said that you initially arrested Mr. Stark for criminal trespass. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did you at any time speak to the owners of that residence?
No, I did not.
Okay. Then how are you aware that he was actually trespassing?
There were notices posted on the residence saying anybody on this property did not have the permission of the owners.
Did you ask Mr. Stark if he was in fact the owner or legal occupant of the residence?
I did not know.
Okay. Let's see. Mr. Stark, did he indicate that he was living there at that residence?
He did.
Was he living there with anyone else?
He said that he had been floating. He had just arrived at that residence. I believe he had been there for the past 2 days, I believe.
Was he living there with anyone else?
He didn't identify anybody else, no.
Okay. Let's see. You said that Mr. Starks ran from you, is that correct?
Correct.
Was he handcuffed when he ran from you?
Yes.
Okay, how far did he run?
He ran from my patrol car up the hill around the next residence and then back down to the patrol car. And that's when he fell in the street.
So what is that, few yards, maybe 30 yards? 40 yards?
Yeah, a few yards, yes.
Okay. Did you tell him to stop?
Yes, multiple times.
Okay. When you arrived at the scene, you said that the door was open or ajar?
Yes, when I walked up to the front door, you could tell it had forced entry because the door was slightly pushed in and the door frame itself was damaged at the latch.
So was it cracked? Was the door cracked?
Yes.
Okay. Did Mr. Stark give you permission to come into the residence?
No.
Okay. So you just entered, and what basis was the entry made?
Once we got there, the front door was ajar and we slightly pushed the front door in. The front door had been braced with a 2x4 from the inside. At that point, we called out Clayton County Police. If you're inside, make yourself known. And he walked out from the rear of the residence.
Okay. From what I recall, you said that you were called out to the residence because of a disturbance. Is that correct?
A person screaming, yes.
A person. Did you locate the person that was screaming?
No.
Okay. All right. At any time, have you spoken with the owner of that property?
I have not, no.
Are you the lead detective on this case?
No.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. You said that you located a firearm on Mr. Starks, correct?
In the residence, correct.
And that would be the basis of the unlawful possession of firearm or weapons charge?
Correct.
Okay. I believe you mentioned that there was a switch on the firearm?
Correct.
Okay, and how were you able to identify this alleged switch?
I did not personally identify that switch. I believe it was my sergeant that identified the switch. I did not see the firearm.
Okay. And what statements, if any, did Mr. Starks make regarding that gun?
I do not recall.
Okay. Do you recall any other statements that Mr. Starks made to you on the scene that day?
I do not know.
Okay. At what point did you Mirandize him?
We Mirandized him after he was in the patrol car. I believe once we identified the puddle in the hallway being blood, that was when we came back to the patrol car and Mirandized him.
Oh, okay. So this was after he ran.
Correct.
Okay. Let's see. No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Attorney Blunt, do you have another witness?
Yes, Judge. The next witness is Detective Bastier.
Okay, Bastille, okay.
Could you raise your right hand for me? Do you solemnly swear affirm the testimony you'll give here today be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Thank you. Could you state your name for the record?
My name is Detective Bastier. I'm currently employed by Clayton County Police Department. I've been a member of the agency for approximately 5 years. I'm currently assigned to CID, or the Criminal Investigative Division, where I'm a detective.
Thank you. Were you on duty on November the 3rd of 2022?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
Did you get involved in a case dealing with the Demarcavius Starks?
Yes, ma'am.
How did you get involved in that case?
I had a supervisor that requested I try to locate the victim, that due to a large amount of blood that was found inside a residence, it was believed that there is a female victim based upon the nature of the call, hence hearing a woman screaming. And I proceeded to use I proceeded to utilize resource and was able to go ahead and track down the victim.
How did you find the victim?
I found the victim through a series of phone calls and made contact with the victim's mother. The victim left Clayton County that night and was basically hiding out on the north side of Atlanta with friends and family.
Did you ever make contact with the victim?
Yes, ma'am. I met the victim at a mall in the Alpharetta area, where she gave a written statement and allowed me to photograph her injuries.
What did the victim advise you?
The victim advised that she and Mr. Starks had a physical altercation. Apparently, they have been living together in various places for over a year. When I interviewed Mr. Starks, he acknowledged the same factor of the family violence. And at one point, Mr. Starks, using a closed fist, proceeded to go ahead and punch the victim, as well as using his hands, choke or strangulate the victim, causing her to lose consciousness, both from the choking and the physical punching.
What kind of injuries could you observe looking at the victim? And did you get the victim's name?
Yes. The victim's name is Melanie, is her first name, and her last name is Frazier.
Thank you. What kind of injuries did you observe on Miss Frazier?
She had numerous lacerations. Her lip had swelling to the side of her face, or the front of her face, or eye area, like a black eye or swollen eye.
You're frozen, Detective Bastier. Or is it just me?
No, he's frozen.
Okay.
If you want to give him a call to maybe later. Okay, look like he's back. Detective?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
You were frozen, so we missed most of the injuries. Could you start over after the swollen lip?
Yeah, she had her eye area swelling like a black eye, a fat or busted open lip from the inside of her mouth, as well as swelling around her face and eyes, and complaining about the back of her head being sore from some type of impact, possibly the floor of the wall. And she gave a written.
Did you notice any open wounds on her face?
Yeah, she had a laceration on like the side of her eye that was approximately, give or take about 2 inches.
At the time that you observed it, was it bleeding?
No, it was not bleeding when I observed it, but the victim had not sought medical attention at this time.
And you stated that you made contact with the defendant?
Yes, I went to the jail to interview the defendant, Mr. Starks.
Was Mr. Starks Mirandized before you did the interview?
Absolutely.
What did he advise you of during that interview?
He didn't really advise me of much of that. He knew the victim. Yes, he'd been living with the victim for some length of time, that they'd been in a relationship more than a year. They were residing together. But in terms of the specific incident, he advised that basically he was blacked out and doesn't recall anything that occurred and doesn't know how any of it happened. Did
he advise you on his living situations at that time?
Yes, he did.
Was he the owner of the residence that the incident happened, where the incident happened?
No, he was not.
And did that incident occur at 4182 Murray Lake Circle?
Yes.
Let me make sure. Yeah. Is that located in Clayton County?
Yes, it is in Clayton County, ma'am.
Thank you. No further questions for Detective Bastier.
Okay, Attorney Hill, your witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective Bastier, exactly how were you able to identify Ms. Frazier that day?
Through a series of phone calls and web-based tools, and I was able to get in contact with her mother, and her mother went ahead and put me in contact with her.
How did you obtain her name?
Through her mother.
No, I mean, how did you ascertain that she was the person on the scene that day, or the person, I guess, for who the call was made, or that she had any, that she was related to this incident at all? How did you identify her as that person?
Well, she told me when I was able to come in contact with her mother, her mother and her informed me that she was.
But was she on the scene that day?
She was on the scene that day. Yes.
Oh, she was
by the Mr. Starks.
Okay, because I thought you said you didn't meet with her until you met with her in North Alpharetta. So she was on the scene when you arrived that day.
I never went to the scene, ma'am.
Okay. Then
she was at the location. That's how she sustained her injuries from Mr. Starks. I did meet with her outside of Clayton County.
Right, but how did you know that she was there on the scene? Did Mr. Starks say that she was there that day? Did a witness say that she was there that day? How did her name come into your investigation?
Through a series of phone calls, I was able to develop a lead that led me to the victim's mother. The mother then informed me that she had indeed been involved in an incident in Clayton County, and that the victim was scared for her safety and left the Clayton County area after the incident.
How were you able to identify that Miss Frazier was indeed the victim that day before making these phone calls?
Because her mother told me she was, ma'am.
Was her mother present at the incident that day?
No, I do not believe so. I believe it was only Mr. Starks and the victim.
Okay. So if only Mr. Starks and the alleged victim were there, and the alleged victim did not call and report this incident to you, did the mother call and report the incident to you?
No, ma'am.
So again, how how did you come across Miss Frazier's name in this entire report and incident?
Through a series of phone calls, ma'am, I made contact with numerous people that gave me that Mr. Starks was involved with had a relationship with a female. I was able to make contact with Miss Frazier's mother. Miss Frazier's mother put me in contact with the victim.
What phone calls did you make that gave you Miss Frazier's name?
I made several phone calls to people that knew either Mr. Frazier or I made several phone calls to people. I really don't want to reveal exactly how I was able to find out the victim, because there are people that do not want them to know that they gave me information.
I see, but I would like to know the relationship of these people to Miss Frazier so we can identify the sources of this
I don't think it's
information.
relevant.
Your Honor,
I do. I will say this, I guess, in terms of, you don't have to reveal your sources, but can you describe, like, how would they know the defendant and or the alleged victim?
They're relatives to the defendant. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's sufficient.
thank you, Your Honor. Detective Bastier, did Miss Frazier go to the hospital that day?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I had already previously stated, ma'am, she had not yet received medical attention.
Do you know if she subsequently received medical attention after that?
I do not know.
Okay. Do you know whether or not Miss Frazier lived at that residence with Mr. Starks?
Both Mr. Starks and Miss Frazier advised that they were, lack of a better term, squatting at that residence.
Okay. Were any of her personal belongings located at the residence?
I believe so.
Okay. All right. What other statements did Mr. Starks make that day other than, I believe you said he blacked out and didn't know what happened? Did he make any other statements to you when you interviewed him at the jail?
That was primarily the gist of his statement.
Okay. Did he make any other statements regarding how long he had been at the property, or, or his property, I mean, whether or not he owns some property there?
No, ma'am.
All right, no further questions, Your Honor.
Okay. Attorney Blunt, do you have any other witnesses?
No further witnesses from the state judge.
Okay, thank you. Attorney Hill, do you have any witnesses?
No, Your Honor, I have no witnesses.
Okay, we're ready for closing. Attorney Blunt?
The state's gonna reserve, Judge.
Okay, Attorney Hill.
Your Honor, I would ask that the court dismiss the charges of theft by receiving stolen property, financial transaction card theft, and aggravated battery, as there did not appear to be any testimony today to support either of those charges.
Okay.
As far as the aggravated battery goes, the state has charged Mr. Starks today with battery as well as aggravated battery. The aggravated battery, I do not believe that the state has met their burden on that. They allege the same facts to support the charge of battery, but under the facts pled here in court today, it seems insufficient. They pled that Ms. Frazier had facial cuts and swelling to her face, but these same injuries are consistent with the type of injuries described in the battery statute. And that specifically contemplates injuries such as blackened eyes and swollen lips and other substantial bruising of the body. There doesn't seem to be any permanent damage to her to where her limbs or anything have been rendered useless. And so aggravated battery seems to be an overreach by the state. And additionally, they have pled no facts at all to support the theft by receiving stolen property, nor the financial transaction card theft today. So I ask that you dismiss all three of those charges.
Okay. Attorney Blunt.
The state will concede to the theft by receiving and the financial transaction card theft, Judge. As far as the ag battery is concerned, there was testimony from Detective Bastier that there was a large cut to Miss Frazier's face. And he did mention that she advised that her eyesight was going out in her eye near where the cut was. At that time, she had not gotten any medical
I'm
treatment.
sorry, Your Honor, I'm gonna have to object. I did not hear testimony about her eyesight not being
Detective
well.
Bastier did mention that her eyesight was going out when he was speaking with her. She advised him of that.
Again, I didn't hear it, Your Honor, but maybe you did.
Yeah, I did hear something with respect to that, so I'm going to overrule.
And at that time, she had not received any medical attention. Being that this is not a beyond a reasonable doubt hearing, the state is going to ask that these charges stand, the ag battery charge, Judge, and all of the other ones except for the theft by receiving and the financial card transaction theft.
Well, I guess I'm confused in the warrant. There does appear to be facts with respect to those separate charges. So in the warrant, with respect to the theft by receiving,
I did say, Judge, that I didn't have any more witnesses. I do have the officer on. I just got caught up in all the other officers and I forgot about this one.
Your Honor, I
your
would,
response, your response, Attorney Hill.
Your Honor, I would object, given that, you know, the state has rested their case.
Okay. So, okay. So what I will do, to be specific, I will bound over. I do find that there's sufficient probable cause to bound over the following charges to Superior Court of Clayton County, that being the aggravated assault charge, that being the aggravated battery charge, that being the family violence battery charge, the obstruction of officer charge, and then the unlawful possession of a firearm. With respect to the theft by receiving stolen property and the financial transaction card theft, that I will dismiss that based on lack of testimony and evidence that was presented at the hearing. That is a decision in the order of the court today.
Thank you.
Was I
Judge.
clear?
Yes, Judge.
Okay. Any
Okay.
questions?
May the officers be excused?
Yes.
Thank
And defendant Stars, that will conclude your preliminary hearing for this morning. Okay. Okay, I think, so that will be, let me stop live.